Portland, Oregon. Shane is a data scientist and an author. He has a bachelor's in biology and is a self-taught computer science technologist. He is currently working as a data scientist at Molecular Match and a machine learning consultant for Rock Media. Fort Rock Media, sorry. Welcome, Shane, for joining us tonight. I'm thrilled to have you on the show. How are you this evening?
Having a great evening. Hope you're doing well, Prashanth. Good to see you.
All is well on here in Canada as well. So Shane, you are a self-taught technology professional. So can you tell us about your journey of, what motivated you to switch from a field of, biology to the field of computer science and so much more with respect to computer science?
Sure, yeah, happy to go through my journey there. I've been doing the computer science stuff for about 10 years, but I graduated with a biology degree and started working in laboratories where you have to do things like dissect mice. I was getting a lot of monkey knees and monkey tissue, and it had the hair on it and everything, and I had to pull out the cartilage, and there was other thing. There was viruses that were generating, and radioactivity and inhaled formaldehyde and all that stuff. And eventually, after a few years of that, I thought this is like yuck. I kind of want to just sit down at the computer. And luckily, there was a task that the lab boss had me do that I was able to automate with some scripting that I taught myself, and it helped the lab. And so he let me sit down and write code. And so I just spent half of my day when not dealing with the monkey parts, actually coding. And yeah.
So, is there some sort of a direct translation with the monkeys, Shane? Because I know you're a fan of that based on some of the other things that you worked on. Is there like something that's kind of going on between monkeys and you're passionate about it?
Well, yeah, I always liked monkeys. Like I like watching them in zoos, and I always followed Jane Goodall and what people are doing with chimps. And then I started to feel bad once I got into biology and I started dissecting them. Um, so luckily I don't have to do that anymore. So
yeah. Yeah, like I think we titled this episode Stone Age, right? So when you think of Stone Age, we are thinking about the evolution of monkeys through over time. So now we are kind of getting into the world of artificial intelligence. So in layman's terms, can you break it down in for our viewers in terms of what exactly is artificial intelligence and data science? Because there is some sort of correlation there. Can you just kind of walk us through like what it exactly means?
yeah. I always like to relate it to just it's the most advanced tool we have right now, and we are tool makers. And so we used to just sit down all day and focus on a piece of stone and chip away at that stone and make the perfect cutting device or spearing device, or something that in the Stone Age, that a tool that allowed us to um, take down a giant hairy rhinoceros or something. And now I sit down all day and I don't chip away at stone. I'm chipping away at silicon and writing code. And so I feel like nothing too much has changed as far as the human brain. We still sit down and focus on something and work on it and perfect it. But AI is a little different because this is the first time that we've really been able to put some of those uniquely human characteristics like creativity into the tool, and then it spits it back out to entertain us for one. So the AI, it's doing a lot of writing lately, and it could say some entertaining and strange things. Or in my day job with Molecular Match, we're doing cancer research, and so that's a much more serious use of it. But that's you can also use it for everything pretty much.
Absolutely. We'll definitely dive deeper into both of those subjects a little bit later, Shane. So what about the field of data science, right? Because data is a crucial portion of artificial intelligence and how it grows and evolves like over time. So can you differentiate us between that? Like what exactly is data science and how is that related to like AI perhaps?
Yeah. Basically, data science sort of comes first, and it's just organizing all of the data that you have and trying to understand the amount. I have this amount and this amount, and if you're able to do data science and sort of categorize like exactly what you have and get it very organized, then there's all these machine learning models that have been built that you can then plug the data into to perform predictions. One of the main things that spurred my learning in this is at the company I'm at, we have a lot of scientists who are doing a lot of work reading publications and clicking around and annotating them. And all day long, they're putting their brain into a database, basically, by just using the software. Anything you use is going to be, anything you click is going to be recorded. And so a machine learning engineer can come and look at what's been recorded and say, okay, these smart people have been doing this for a long time. Can we now basically put their brain into a machine that can then do the same thing and help them out? So we're able to make people's jobs more efficient by making a little copy of them.
Do you feel that we are going to a world where like AI is going to take over a lot of the things, like with respect to jobs and things more efficient and things like do you sense that coming in the near future?
I hope so, because I spend too much time doing it myself, and I kind of just want to walk out the door and be done with it. If the computer can take care of it.
Absolutely,
if
definitely. There's
cancer research, then we don't have cancer anymore. So.
No, we'll take a closer look at that a little bit later. But Shane, we talked a little bit about this already. But what are the benefits of having AI integrated into your lives? There are positives. For example, it helps you do your day-to-day lives better and helps you with a lot of core tasks. What are some other benefits that people may not realize that this is something that they must have?
Yeah, in the last year, there's been several models that have come out that can actually help the everyday person in a way, because everybody does something like writing. Everybody who's on social media does some kind of promotion, marketing of what they're doing. And the writing AI models have gotten really good lately. And in two of the books that I wrote, I used these models trained on my own writing to write for me and write some of it. And mostly as think of having like a crazy friend in a coffee shop who you buy him a coffee and you talk about your ideas, and he spits back out some other crazy ideas as well that help you finish what you were working on. And so there's a lot of AIs called natural language generation that anybody could just use right now to make any of their writing more efficient and more creative. And then as an engineer, what's happened in the last 6 months that I've gotten pretty involved with is the models that have learned to write, they've learned to write code now. And so I've had to jump into a new area of computer vision that I knew nothing about. Instead of just starting from blank, I'm able to tell an AI model what I'm trying to do, and it will write pages and pages of code for me. And that it's not perfect for my task, but I can copy it and paste it into my task and adjust it, and it really gets you started. So all that syntax, a lot of the syntax that programmers have to keep in their brain, if you actively use these AI models, it takes care of that for you, and you could spend more time on the actual application and ideas.
So saying right now people are probably thinking about whether we're gonna have Terminator all over again, or whether the machines are gonna take over and things like that. What are your thoughts on some negative aspects in a world that's fully integrated with AI? Because right now, they're just slowly coming up, and there's aspects of it in your day-to-day lives. But there is a future potentially it's pretty much going to be everywhere. So what are some negative aspects of it? Do we see another Terminator or iRobot or one of those kind of movie interpretations happening anytime soon?
I'm sure somebody's working on it. there's always a few evil people working on things like that, or I guess there's big military organizations that might be working on that. But as far as like writing stuff that people need to worry about now, is just the amount of fake news that's generated, because the writing models have no respect for the truth, but they sound very confident. They can sound totally sure of themselves, but completely flub the statistics, flub the people, flub everything involved, and then you generate a bunch of stuff and you produce blog posts or whatever, or you produce my book that I put the AI writing in these little boxes so you know what's me and what's the robot. But as the writing gets better, you won't be able to tell what's written by a real person or not, and some of it may be malicious. Somebody may be trying to fish you for something and steal some accounts of yours. So as far as writing and online security, so that'll be in there. For the killer robots, I try not to think about those too much. Not sure what you can do about those.
I mean, like, is there some precautions that people need to hit? Because I think, is there such thing as you need to control what you can give AI? Because AI is kind of evolving based on the information you provide, right? So let's say, for example, you give too much information about your day-to-day work and, emails or text messages or Facebook or everything in together. Do you think that's considered as, too much information for AI? Or is that actually going to help AI kind of, help you better in a course of time? Mm-hmm. Is there such thing as too much info?
Yeah, it's crazy how much people put of their lives onto the internet, and there's certainly lots of, I don't know if AI so much is doing it yet, but I'm sure there are hackers who are using AI to steal and siphon information and classify. Oh, this looks like something I could steal somebody's identity with. Also, the models themselves, they grew up on the internet, and the internet's kind of a bad place to grow up. Maybe that's like you were with some Gen Z people earlier, right? And they grew up on the internet too. But the AI models are, they can be racist. They can be, they have no respect for decency or truth because they're just trained on the internet itself. So
right, yeah. I think it's what you feed in is what you get. Like if you feed in a lot of your negativity, racism, and bullying and kind of stuff, then you're gonna get results that are oriented to that. So that's definitely an interesting take on this. Shane, we'll go deeper into your book and everything after the break. So right now we're gonna go into a short commercial break, folks, and once we come back, we're gonna take a look to see how AI is kind of applied to a creative space. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
पूरे ऑन्टेरियो में लाखों लोग अपनी कोविड-19 की वैक्सीन हासिल कर चुके हैं। हेल्थ कनाडा की मंजूरशुदा तमाम वैक्सीन्स महफूज और अस्पतालों, डॉक्टर्स के दफातर, फार्मेसीज और अवामी वैक्सीनेशन के मुकामात पर हासिल हैं। अपना किरदार अदा करें, अपनी वैक्सीन हासिल करें। 300 जुबानों में मदद के लिए ontario.ca/bookvaccine पर जाएं या 1-888-999-6488 पर कॉल करें।
आपकी रिहाइश ऐसी हो जहां जिंदगी की सहूलत मयसर हो, जो आपको बुलंदियों पर ले जाए, तो मिलिए रियल एस्टेट मार्केट के एक्सपीरियंस्ड रियल एस्टेट प्रोफेशनल अमित ओबेरॉय से। GTA में रियल एस्टेट मार्केट के हर अंदाज से वाकिफ। आपको घर खरीदना हो, बेचना हो या करना हो मुनाफे का इन्वेस्टमेंट, मेरे तजुर्बे से आज ही फायदा उठाएं। आज ही कॉल करें अमित ओबेरॉय 647-291-8102। अमित ओबेरॉय, ब्यूटीफुल होम्स यू कैन अफोर्ड।
Zoc. Now it's fully renovated. Live catering, barbecue, tandoor, जलेबियाँ और fresh naan. तकरीब आपके घर में हो या घर से बाहर, Zoc is providing full service now, and Zoc has opened a new banquet hall, garden event center. आपका Zoc देखकर लोग कहेंगे क्या Zoc है आपका? Call right now 905-625-7786. Zoc वालों के लिए।
डिक्सी इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स और अप्लायंसेस पिछले 16 सालों से खरीदारों की खिदमत कर रहे हैं। हम लगातार 4 सालों से खरीदारों की पहली पसंद बने रहने का अवार्ड हासिल कर चुके हैं। हम किचनर्स, बॉश, वर्लपूल, एलजी, सैमसंग और जनरल इलेक्ट्रिक के ऑथराइज्ड डीलर हैं। 5 स्टार खिदमत का लुत्फ लें। हम आप सभी को टीवी सबसे ज्यादा रियायती दामों पर देने की गारंटी देते हैं। www.dixieelectronics.ca हमारी वेबसाइट पर जाएं या अभी कॉल करें 9056255900। सभी बहुत ही मुनासिब कीमत पर दस्तयाब हैं जो आप बाआसानी से ले सकते हैं। At Dixie, we sell quality and deliver confidence.
Welcome back to Mosaic, folks, and we have Shane from Portland, Oregon. And today our focus is all about evolution from Stone Age to the artificial intelligence. So Shane, welcome back. So you are an author for your book called Stone Age Code: From Monkey Business to AI. Can you talk us a little bit about what the book is about and your inspiration behind writing this?
Yeah, Stone Age Code was basically birthed because I had time during the pandemic, and I had some not going to restaurants, and I had extra time to sit and write. And once I started writing, so many ideas that I had wanted to speak about before just came out pretty easily. And I realized I had a book on my hands where it's a major analogy between where we evolved from as tool makers to the most advanced tool that we have now of AI. And so, yeah, that's it. And the fun part of it was that I trained a model on my own writing to write in it for me, and it says wacky things, and I kind of poke fun at it because I tried not to take the AI too seriously because it doesn't know what it's talking about.
Would you say it's a little bit like part of your personalities are kind of like exhibited by this AI in your book then? Yeah.
It does. Yeah, it does do that. The more of your personal writing that you put into it and train, the more that sounds like you that comes out of it. I did one experiment where I had this email correspondence with an uncle of mine who had passed away, and I put our entire email correspondence together, and then we could have like a little chat again almost. And it reminded me, he would always say like, where should we go for lunch and stuff like that. And so,
it's quite interesting to see like the number of possibilities that it can analyze just from email correspondence and things like that. So it's quite fascinating. So I understand your book has been out for a little while, but how the reviews been since the launch? What's the positives? What's the negatives? What has the feedback been like so far?
Well, yeah, I started writing this, and then halfway through I discovered an AI art technique, and I made an entire book about AI art and AI poetry in the middle of this one, and then I put that one out, and then I finished this one. And so I think people have loved the art that I put in both books, the cover of them, and the poetry book has like 80 images that were generated by an AI as well.
Let's talk a little bit about your new book, Shane. So can you talk us through the process of utilizing AI for poetry? Because that's not something that's very heard of, right? So you think of artificial intelligence as the research and this and that. Creativity is something that's not something you hear a lot. Like, can you talk us through a little bit about how it's kind of helped you write your book, as well as just the concept of just using this artificial intelligence in the creative space as a whole?
Yeah. When I found out how to use these models, which started from research from my day job, and then I started looking up examples, there were large poetry data sets that were open sourced with hundreds of thousands of mostly out of copyright poetry, old English poetry, something that's over 70 years old and is out of copyright. And I trained the model on, to basically become a poet, and it got better at writing poetry. But I wanted to include a human element too, so I knew some poets. My girlfriend, T.M. Foxglove, and I had some friends who were poets as well. And my editor was a poet, and so I had them look at the AI art and write the first line, and I fed that line to the robot who finished the rest of the poem. So the whole book is a collaboration between an actual real poet write the first line, and then the robot finishes it for him. So
that's really interesting, Shane. So can AIs truly be creative? If so, like how much data do you really need in order for a machine to really understand your creativity? Because creativity, there's no real structure, right? So it's not like it's a standard operating procedure where you tell it, A, B, C, D, E. Creativity, people get inspired by, music, mood, rhythm, pictures, what they see, what they hear, all these kind of things. How do you feed that kind of things? And can you actually define that, hey, an AI cannot truly be creative?
Yeah, the more that I read the outputs of it, the more I realized that it is saying things that have never been said. Though it's been trained on everything the same way you have, sometimes it says something that's never been said. Like it came up with a word, neandovirus. And I use that a lot in these NFTs I created of these Neanderthal skulls that were transformed by the AI art. I just call them neandovirus because the robot came up with that word, and I looked in Google. It's never been said before, so it didn't learn it from anywhere. It actually is recombining different ideas into new ones. So certainly, I think it's if you consider a creative person like somebody with a lot of wild ideas, these things are like that, and you can turn up the sort of randomness of them too, and they'll just say totally out there things. So I think it can help as a creative person. It'll help be your muse more than anything, and give you ideas. But they're advancing so fast that to be like truly creative and write a whole unique screenplay or something, I think in the future that could happen as well.
That's very interesting. So actually that leads to my next question, saying, so what does it mean by for the future of artists and other professionals in the creative space, right? So not just people that are doing writing. What about people that are in video editing perhaps, or that are into music or filmmaking and things like that? So what does that mean to them? So can they be assisting in terms of, can we see movies that are kind of made by AI perhaps in the future that are not anything like humans can ever create it?
Yeah, I think people have been working on screenplays, and you get only so far, and then the robot at this point forgets what it was talking about because its brain is not large enough. Its memory is not able to grasp things that it wrote pages and pages ago and not remember. So there's a limit right now as to like how much you can do. So an entire movie, I think it would lose the plot pretty quickly. An entire book, it's not there, but a chapter of a book, a blog article, obviously marketing material, that kind of stuff. It can be very creative in those tight spaces. But until it gets, it's not going to outdo Scorsese or anything as far as plot anytime soon.
Where do you see the advancements of AI in the next 5 to 10 years, Shane? Because they have been around for a while. It's not like AI is something brand new. But moving forward in the 5 to 10 years or so, like where do you see that kind of growing? Like maybe broaden the scope a little bit. So outside of the creative space, where do you see the future of AI?
Yeah, in the last 6 months, the fact that it programs itself is very exciting, and that had literally just begun. It was the model trained on all of the world's open source programming, and so it's learned to code, which means will learn to make apps, learn to make games that you will have never thought of yourself. It'll help you make games, and so it'll even write machine learning models and come up with unique ideas. So it's that idea of that, it's the very beginning of it starting to program itself in a way. So anything can come out of that.
Are you saying that AIs could be making games of its own? So for example, let's say it's an educational games or like video games or something like that. Are you saying that the AIs are now coming to a point where they can create games based on trends and patterns and what people like? Perhaps is that a possibility?
It's, yeah, based on the games that we've already written and put out there. It can um, it can combine them into like a totally unique one because it's read the code of every single game that's public. And so with a little bit of prompting, right now it still requires a human, obviously, to even say, can you make this game that has these characters in it, and this is the objective, and it finishes that, after that. Um, but yeah, in 5 years, I think, more people can get into programming because these things finish a lot of the work for you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What do you have to say for people that are kind of like, thinking that, oh, what, this is an exciting space for me? If let's say somebody's like working in like web development or something completely not related to AI, what kind of advice would you have for them? Like, would you tell them, hey, like, this is something you need to look into, or this is just going to take over your jobs one day? Because something simple as building websites, right? I can totally see AI is helping with that, because once you kind of give it a structure of, this is what I'm looking for, blah blah blah, etc. I'm pretty sure AI can actually help you make that. So would you advise, let's say, for example, a web developer to kind of understand the AI process in order to help them make better designs and be the author of that too?
If they're interested in it, I don't think you should sit and sulk and worry that it's going to take over your job, because if you do that, I guess it will. You have to partner with it. And for me, the motivation to get into things was always like solving a little problem. Like when I was first at the lab, there was this little task that we're using Excel a lot for. And I realized, okay, if I program something, I can automate it. And so people should look at their jobs and what is annoying in their jobs for them or for the other people. And is it routine enough that data can be recorded, and then you could train a model to do the job, to do the task. And that's always motivating, because then you get to tell your team, even if you knew nothing before, it's like I worked to produce this, and now we can automate this task, make things a little more efficient. So that's how I would always jump into it, is just try to use it to solve some little problem that you have at first.
Mm-hmm. What about kids, Shane? Because right now, programming is something that kids need to start getting involved in school, and there's a lot of emphasis on getting kids to learn how to program and things like that. Would you also consider bringing AI and data science and things like that at a younger age? Because usually now the data science world is kind of a specialized field, and it's a little bit off core computer science per se. Would you kind of advise to kind of bring all these things back into the education system as early as maybe high school perhaps?
Yeah, I think programming is a really good focus for everyone. And for most of the machine learning, it's you just introduce the general idea that if you have enough data on something, you can teach a model to predict that. I did this one thing for kids that, and for myself as well, there's a lot of data out there about what animals are showing up at this time of year, or what plants grow at this time of year, or if you're a mushroom hunting, what mushrooms are growing from the ground at this time of year. And you can put that into a model and then run a prediction to find out what's the best time of year to go mushroom hunting, or what month are you most likely to see a cougar in the mountains, based on all the years and years of past observations. So there's fun tasks like that. Or in the computer vision space, you can always teach kids to take pictures of lots of dogs, and then train a machine learning model that can detect what kind of dog a new dog is. It could be like a golden retriever poodle, and then the model's like, I don't know, that's a weird dog, I don't know what that is.
That's really interesting. So you're saying it's actually applicable to wildlife. So there's other practical applications. Let's say you're a photographer or something like that. So maybe it'll kind of help a photographer analyze what's the best time to go out and do your photography or something like that too. So
Sure.
yeah, that's interesting. What about in the automobile industry? So right now we have Teslas and everything they're all automated. So there is a component of AI in the background. Do you see this kind of just because I think we're already there. when it comes to the whole self-driving cars and stuff. So where does
Yeah.
AI fit into this world? Like, what about taxi drivers and those type of jobs? So people need to be afraid of the fact that they may be in danger of these type of just jobs as well too.
Yeah. I guess you should always have a plan. If you're a taxi driver, say, I'm just going to drive taxi, or truck driver, I'm just going to drive trucks my whole life and nothing's ever going to change. You should have, you should be aware that, the people don't, put shoes on horses anymore and stuff like that. So when technology happens, it changes pretty quickly, and it always helps society do things more efficiently. Though I do wish there were more horses around, but I think Tesla should bring back a horse, like an electronic horse.
Maybe they'll bring back like a horse version of a Tesla, perhaps. Even the remote and stuff are kind of looking a little unique, so maybe they'll do that in the future. Bring back like AI horses, perhaps. You never know.
Yeah.
Cool. So we're going to take another quick break, folks, as we're going to take a little bit deeper look into AI and its practical applications outside of this work. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this break.
पूरे ओंटारियो में लाखों लोगों ने अपना कोविड-19 टीका लगवाया है। स्वास्थ्य कनाडा द्वारा अनुमोदित सभी टीके सुरक्षित हैं और अस्पतालों, डॉक्टरों के कार्यालयों, फार्मेसियों और सामूहिक टीकाकरण स्थलों में उपलब्ध हैं। अपनी भूमिका निभाएं, अपना टीका लगवाएं। वेबसाइट ontario.ca/book vaccine पर जाएं या 300 भाषाओं में सहायता के लिए 1-888-999-6488 पर कॉल करें।
आपकी रिहाइश ऐसी हो जहां जिंदगी की सहूलत मयसर हो, जो आपको बुलंदियों पर ले जाए, तो मिलिए रियल एस्टेट मार्केट के एक्सपीरियंस्ड रियल एस्टेट प्रोफेशनल अमित ओबेरॉय से। GTA में रियल एस्टेट मार्केट के हर अंदाज से वाकिफ। आपको घर खरीदना हो, बेचना हो या करना हो मुनाफे का इन्वेस्टमेंट, मेरे तजुर्बे से आज ही फायदा उठाएं। आज ही कॉल करें अमित ओबेरॉय 647-291-8102। Amit Oberoi, beautiful homes you can afford.
KK Travel believe in providing everyone the first-class customer service. We take care not only for your air ticket, but dignity and respect as well. We are available for you anytime on WhatsApp, even while you are in Pakistan or any other destination. KK Travels guarantee lowest prices and are open to price match any airline.
We are KK Travels under supervision of Gas Khan at 905-367-9433 or visit www.gaskhontravels.com.
पूरे ओंटारियो में लाखों लोगों ने अपना कोविड-19 टीका लगवाया है। स्वास्थ्य कनाडा द्वारा अनुमोदित सभी टीके सुरक्षित हैं और अस्पतालों, डॉक्टरों के कार्यालयों, फार्मेसियों और सामूहिक टीकाकरण स्थलों में उपलब्ध हैं। अपनी भूमिका निभाएं, अपना टीका लगवाएं। वेबसाइट ontario.ca/book vaccine पर जाएं या 300 भाषाओं में सहायता के लिए 1-888-999-6488 पर कॉल करें।
Welcome back to Canadian Mosaic, folks, and we are here with Shane from Portland, Oregon. So before the break, we talked a little bit about AI's applications to the creative space, such as poetry, and a little bit around other areas of an artist. So let's take a look at the applications in another field, which is the medical industry. So Shane, like you work on cancer treatment research and search engines. So can you talk a little bit about how it's relevant and how it's applicable to the molecular research area and some of the practical applications out of it? Because I think that's something people need to think about, is that there's a huge opportunity in the healthcare space with respect to AI. Talk us through about your experience so far and what the future of the healthcare industry would be.
Yeah. I talk a lot about AI writing and even AI coding is because in my day job, I focus on natural language processing, which is maybe half of artificial intelligence efforts right now in the world, maybe less. It might be less because you think of things like, computer vision in Teslas and Tesla making their own chips for it and everything is really is the majority of the work is learning, to recreate the human eye and brain. But the other part is recreating human language. in the medical space, there's lots and lots of language. There's lots of good language, like abstract publications about medical research, millions and millions in every language all over the world, and a lot of meetings happen. And then there's worse language like doctors' notes and things in EMRs that a busy nurse or doctor might type out really fast, and it might not make too much sense. And so there's a lot of ways to apply AI to understand and classify notes. For us at Molecular Match, we build this search engine to classify what is the most important cancer research trials, which a clinical trial is basically a big document describing what kind of research and what kind of drugs will be given to the patient. And then we're called Molecular Match because we focus on the actual molecular genetics inside of the tumor. And so in building a search engine for this stuff, we want a patient or a doctor or somebody to come and say, I have this cancer, I have these mutations, what is the most promising research for me right now? And we, like Google, our top 10 results, we want them to be really good. And so out of millions of results, how do you get that top 10 up? And so we employ a lot of machine understanding of language, because we can't read them all and rank them all. So we have models that go through and rank them as to what's the most quality and what's going to be right for that patient. And in the probably a lot of the medical space is also on the image side, and so it's looking for small tumors that you can't see inside of an MRI. And so it's using those advances in computer vision. And I'm also working on another project in computer vision right now in medicine that looks at pictures of viruses and tries to decide, based on past data that we've collected, what organ they're most likely going to target the most. I think, I don't know, I'm not working on COVID. It's a much more benign virus, but I think with COVID, there was some research showing that it actually piles up in the testicles. And it's that's maybe why there's a slight difference between men and women in severity. And so you want to know where the virus is going to go in the body. And one unique way is to actually use all the advances in computer vision to look and guess what kind of organ it's going to attach to.
Wow, that's good. It's quite impressive. So Shane, do you see AI kind of assisting healthcare professionals in a sense? So doing more things complicated surgeries perhaps, or just in the operating room, or just assisting a nurse, for example. So do you see a possibility for that as well?
Certainly if they're spending any time, transcribing their notes, you can have models help with that. They're very busy. So anything that can get them less time clicking around on the EMR screen and more predictive of, I've been to a doctor's appointment where they're like, where is that drug? Where is that? They're looking forever and ever. And they don't have much time to be there with you. And they should spend more time with the patient rather than being on the computer. So certainly anything that could automate. And I'm sure the EMR companies are working on that. But the EMR companies also seem to spend a lot of time making a lot of tools that doctors hate. And nurses hate because they're always frustrated with it. So
definitely. I think if you look at the healthcare industry, I think a lot of things are not streamlined, so they're not very centralized in a sense. So there's some data in one space and there's another data in one space. So oftentimes when you go to the doctor, you think that they would have everything, but oftentimes you have spent a lot of time, connecting the dots and pulling the report from this one and that one and stuff. So I definitely see some usage on that as well, Shane. So let's take a little bit of a pause, Shane. I want to get to know you a little bit better, so I'm going to ask you some personal questions to see what is Shane outside of the whole the AI space, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Cool, Shane. So, what is your favorite pastime hobby, like that you like to do during your downtime, or like in between your day job or anything like that?
The one I do most consistently is probably just go to the gym. And today I went early enough that the basketball court was open. I was able to shoot around for a good half an hour, and that was nice. So yeah, that's what I do. And then I've got kids, so I just roll around on the floor a lot. They jump on me, kind of thing.
Very inspirational. So I think that's always a nice de-stressor per se when it comes to kids, I think. Yeah. So Shane, like, who's your? Sorry, what was that?
For them. Yeah.
Not for you.
They love to jump on me and crush me. Yeah.
That's like an excerpt in your next book, perhaps.
Yeah.
Kids like to jump on me and everything. Okay. Shane, like, who's your biggest inspiration and why?
My biggest inspiration was Steve Irwin. I just loved watching The Crocodile Hunter. There's nobody more inspiring than him, and can't believe a stingray took him out. But all those crocodiles, you just jump on their backs, and he did it because he was always trying to save them. Someone was in trouble, something was injured, and he's willing to put his life on the line constantly to save these big lizards. He was my earliest inspiration into world of biology.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's awesome. He's. I saw him growing up, personally speaking, so I've seen him in person by myself. So it's a very interesting guy.
Wow.
Yeah, I have. Yeah. So Shane, what's your favorite subject in school? Like when you were going through high school and college and all of these things, what was your favorite?
Funnest class was journalism, because I like to photoshopping something weird and then having that end up in the school newspaper, and then so I guess I'm still doing that with the books. Is I put a lot of jokes in there that makes me happy to know they're just out there.
Absolutely. What is your secret for happiness, Dane?
Secret, probably just routine. I think if I have a good routine, that's when I'm feeling my best. So if you can, get up early enough and go to bed at the right time and do a workout, and for me, that's just consistency is what helps.
Great. So Shane, what's your favorite drink of all time?
I drink. I love drinking soups, like a good broth or something and just in a cup. I just make a broth with some onions and salt and just drink soup.
Good to know. So let's go back into a little bit more AI questions before we wrap up. Do you have? You did something very interesting, Shane. So you went from biology to computer science, which is on the completely other ends of the spectrum. And right now there might be some viewers that are kind of looking at this show and be like, you know what? I'm also in the same field. I'm in biology. I want to make a transition that is kind of equivalent or maybe something similar. Do you have any advice for them in terms of the steps that they need to do today in order to kind of get into this space? Because of course, you cannot teach AI overnight. Mm-hmm. You cannot teach computer science overnight. So do you have any guidance or process in terms of what they can do today to kind of work themselves up to that?
Sure. I'd first make sure that you like to sit at a computer all the time and program. Because that's still what I've been doing. I do like it because I like to solve a problem and then get immediate feedback of whether it worked or not. So I still just willingly do that. So you got to make sure that's what you want to do. And then you have to kind of just go for it. And like I said, try to solve some little problem in your job, in your lab, in whatever, and see if that motivates you. And then I after that, I had to get an engineering degree to be taken seriously still. So I was self-taught programmer, for a few years, and I actually, worked programming for the lab. But to be taken seriously and get to the next level, I still went to get a master's of engineering.
You think a master's really helped in that sense, in terms of just advancing your career and as well as your knowledge as well in this field?
Yeah, I focused on systems biology programming, and I found a medical company that was looking for that kind of person. So with just the bachelor's in biology, and saying I'm really good at coding, it might not be as easy to get in. Unfortunately, because some people are geniuses at it with no degree at all. Thinking of like hackers or something.
Got it, Kane. So Shane, like you've got a blended of science, technology, and creativity, and that's a very interesting background expertise. So what's next in the creative space as well as your career journey, Shane? Because these are three different areas. And I'm curious to see what's coming.
I'll admit, putting out 2 books in basically a year was more work than I thought it would be. I have formed a publishing company as well to help organize all the finances around those books, and get everything done. So fully self-published in all aspects of it. And I've tried to sit down and write again, but it's still like with that creative muse is sometimes hard to find. So at this point, I'm just kind of focused on my job, and maybe I'll be the once every 10 years author or something. So yeah, I'll get a creative itch maybe during the next pandemic.
Hopefully, there's not a pandemic anytime soon. I think that's too much of an ask, Shane. So, thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with the audience, or anything that you wish to take away for the folks that are listening in?
No, but reach out to me if you want. You can DM me on Twitter or something if you have questions. I'm Chimps Are Hungry. That's just my screen name. And I'm glad to be here and glad to be on this super Canadian program. This is fun.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shane, for coming on the show. It was truly a pleasure to learn about your data science background, artificial intelligence, and the creativity as well. So on behalf of the viewers and Awaz Entertainment, we wish you all the very best with your creative side as well as your career journey on the technology side. So that's all we have time for today, folks. I'm your host, Prashanth from Canadian Mosaic. If you've enjoyed the show, please do follow us on social media. Remember, humans are continuously evolving. Let's take the time to embrace the evolution of computers and technology within our society. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you the same time next week. Take care.